Hello and welcome to Alden Carrow's Poetry Podcast. I'm Alden Carrow, poet, walker and author of Cumbrian verse Lakes to Fells in Poetry. This is a podcast for people who suspect, as I do, that the world is moving too quickly and that something quietly extraordinary waits for anyone willing to slow down, listen closely and pay proper attention to it. In every episode, I share 2 poems. The first is a guest poem from the wider world of verse, something that stayed with me or troubled me or refused to let me go. The second is one of my own, drawn from the moors, the coasts, the weather, and the strange beauty of ordinary days. And for your chance to win a signed copy of Cumbria in verse Lakes to Fells in Poetry, I invite you to suggest a future guest poem by emailing me at aldencarrow78@gmail.com. That's aldencarrow78@gmail.com. The next guest poem will come from one of you. My email address is in the episode description. Today, we are high on one of the best-loved fells in all of Lakeland, a rough, knotted, secretive mountain that a great man chose at the end of his life as the place he wished to become. This is an episode about dissolution, and about whether dissolution is the same thing as loss. We have spent the last few weeks in hard, emptied places, a Cornish mining town, a hollowed-out Cumbrian one, learning what it means when the work is gone and a place is left waiting. Today we climb above all that, into the thinning air, and ask a stranger and larger question, whether anything is ever truly lost at all, or whether it only changes its form. We begin with Percy Bysshe Shelley and a poem spoken by a cloud that claims it cannot die. And then we climb to Haystacks, where the rock is coming apart, the old quarry has gone to ghost, and a walker stands at the edge, staring into the very cloud that Shelley gave a voice. So pour something warm, settle in, the wind is up, the light is going, and there is poetry to be found. Before we come to my own poem, I want to put our theme plainly, because the whole episode turns on it. Nothing here is lost, it is only changing state. It is a hard thing to believe some weeks. We've sat together lately in places built on the idea of loss, towns whose work was taken, whose people were left with nothing but the quiet afterwards. Loss is real, and I would never ask you to pretend otherwise. But today's 2 poems between them offer a wider lens than loss, a way of looking at the world in which nothing is ever destroyed, but only carried endlessly from one form into another. Today's guest poem is one of the great statements of that idea. It is The Cloud by Percy Bysshe Shelley, published in 1820. Shelley has been with us before on this podcast. We have stood with him beneath Mont Blanc, and before the ruined statue of Ozymandias, that great poem about the vanity of things that believe themselves permanent. The cloud is the other side of that coin, where Ozymandias mocks the king who thought his empire would last forever. The cloud celebrates the one thing that genuinely does last, not by staying the same, but by refusing ever to stay the same. The poem is spoken remarkably by the cloud itself. Shelley gives the cloud a voice and lets it describe its own endless life. It brings the rain and the shade. It is wielded by the lightning. It sifts the snow onto the mountains below. It veils the sun and unveils it again. And then, at the very end, it turns to us and tells us its secret. It has been laughing at its own tomb all along, because it has no tomb. When the sky is clear, and the cloud seems to have vanished utterly, it has not died, it has only become the vapour we cannot see, and it will build itself again out of the blue. I changed, the cloud says, but I cannot die. As I read it, listen for that final, extraordinary confidence. The voice of a thing that has watched itself disappear 1,000 times and knows, each time, that disappearance is not the end. Here is the cloud. I bring fresh showers for the thirsting flowers from the seas and the streams. I bear light shade for the leaves when laid in their noonday dreams. From my wings are shaken the dews that waken the sweet buds every one, when rocked to rest on their mother's breast as she dances about the sun. I wield the flail of the lashing hail and whiten the green plains under, and then again I dissolve it in rain and laugh as I pass in thunder. I sift the snow on the mountains below, and their great pines groan aghast, and all the night 'tis my pillow white, while I sleep in the arms of the blast. Sublime on the towers of my skiey bowers, lightning my pilot sits. In a cavern under is fettered the thunder, it struggles and howls at fits. Over earth and ocean, with gentle motion, this pilot is guiding me, lured by the love of the genii that move in the depths of the purple sea. Over the rills and the crags and the hills, over the lakes and the plains, wherever he dream, under mountain or stream, the spirit he loves remains. And I all the while bask in heaven's blue smile, whilst he is dissolving in rains. The sanguine sunrise with his meteor eyes and his burning plumes outspread leaps on the back of my sailing rack when the morning star shines dead. As on the jag of a mountain crag which an earthquake rocks and swings, an eagle alit one moment may sit in the light of its golden wings. And when sunset may breathe from the lit sea beneath its ardours of rest and of love, and the crimson pall of eve may fall from the depths of heaven above, with wings folded I rest on mine airy nest, as still as a brooding dove. That orbed maiden with white fire laden, whom mortals call the moon, glides glimmering over my fleece-like floor by the midnight breezes strewn. And wherever the beat of her unseen feet, which only the angels hear, may have broken the woof of my tent's thin roof, the stars peep behind her and peer, and I laugh to see them whirl and flee like a swarm of golden bees, when I widen the rent in my wind-built tent, till calm the rivers, lakes and seas, like strips of the sky, fallen through me on high, are each page with the moon and these. I bind the sun's throne with a burning zone, and the moon's with a girdle of pearl. The volcanoes are dim, and the stars reel and swim, when the whirlwinds my banner unfurl. From cape to cape, with a bridge-like shape, over a torrent sea, sunbeam-proof I hang like a roof, the mountains its columns be. The triumphal arch through which I march, with hurricane, fire and snow, when the powers of the air are chained to my chair, is the million-coloured bow. The sphere fire above its soft colours wove, while the moist earth was laughing below. I am the daughter of earth and water, and the nursling of the sky. I pass through the pores of the ocean and shores, I change but I cannot die. For after the rain when with never a stain the pavilion of heaven is bare, and the winds and sunbeams with their convex gleams build up the blue dome of air, I silently laugh at my own cenotaph, and out of the caverns of rain, like a child from the womb, like a ghost from the tomb, I arise and unbuild it again. I change, but I cannot die. There is the whole of it, 6 words and a complete philosophy. What Shelley understood, and what makes this more than a pretty nature poem, is that permanence and change are not opposites. We tend to think of them as enemies. A thing is either lasting or it is fleeting, either solid or dissolving. But the cloud is both at once. It's utterly impermanent, never the same shape for 2 moments together, forever tearing and reforming, and yet it is one of the most genuinely indestructible things in the world. The water that falls as this evening's rain fell as rain for the dinosaurs, and will fall again long after we have gone. It has been ocean and river and cloud and rain and ocean again, in a cycle with no beginning we can find, and no end we can imagine. It changes constantly. That is precisely why it cannot die. And this is a genuinely consoling thought, if we let it be. Not a cheap consolation, not a papering over, but a real one, rooted in the actual physics of the world. Nothing is destroyed. The matter that made a thing does not vanish when the thing ends. It is only released and taken up again into something new. The fallen leaf becomes the soil, becomes the tree. The closed mine becomes the flooded shaft, becomes the still, dark water where the moon looks at itself. Even grief, even the emptied town, even the loss we sat with last week, even those are not the final erasure they feel like. They are a change of state. Which brings me to my own poem, and to a mountain that is, very slowly, changing state before our eyes, and to the man who chose that mountain as the place where he, too, would change from one form into another. My poem this week is called Haystacks. If you know the Lake District at all, you may know the name, and you may know the story that clings to it. But let me set the scene first, because it is one of the strangest and most wonderful fells in all of Lakeland. Haystacks is not a big mountain. It stands only a little under 600 metres, dwarfed by the giants around it, the gables, the pillar, the great bulk of the high-style range across Buttermere. By the cold arithmetic of height, it's nothing special. And yet it was the favourite fell of Alfred Wainwright, the man who, more than any other, taught the modern world how to walk the Lakeland fells, whose 7 hand-drawn guidebooks are among the most beloved books ever made about landscape. Wainwright climbed everything. He knew every fell in the district by heart. And of them all, it was this rough, knobbled, secretive little mountain that he loved the most. He wrote that Haystacks stood in his memory as the place of great affection and beauty, and he asked that when he died, his ashes be scattered there, up by the tarn called Innominate, the tarn with no name. And so they were. In 1991, on the summit plateau of the fell he loved best, Alfred Wainwright became part of Haystacks. He's up there now, or rather, the matter that was him is up there now, in the peat and the water and the wind, changed from a man into a mountain he adored. He told his readers, with characteristic bluntness, that if they should find a bit of grit in their boots as they crossed Haystacks in the years to come, they might like to think it was him, and to treat him gently. I climbed Haystacks thinking about that, and the poem that came is not a soft poem. The mountain itself isn't soft. It's volcanic rock, fractured by 10,000 winters into fans of angular waste. It carries the ghost of an old quarry, a rusted tramway, the dust of a vanished trade. It is a mountain visibly, geologically coming apart. But standing at its edge, staring into the cloud, I couldn't feel that coming apart as only loss, because somewhere in that peat was a man who had chosen exactly this, to dissolve into the thing he loved. Here is the poem Haystacks. The ascent is a narrowing, a throat of grit where the pull of the slope is a muscular lock. Upward, the sky is a wedge, a hard-won slit of light pressed between the anvil and the rock. Then the ground spills wide, a broken, level shelf, pitted with basins where the dark water sleeps. Here is a silence that listens to itself, hiding the hollows where the staghorn creeps. The stone is volcanic, a slow, frozen surge, fractured by winter into fans of angular waste. Peat blood stains the lip where the bogs converge, steeping the roots in a cold, astringent paste. A roof of grey slate leans away from the wind, dry stone ribs against the weather's raid. Here the tramway rusted, the cable thinned, the ghost of the quarry, the dust of the trade. Time is a freeze-thaw pulse, a tectonic stall, while the plateau hangs over the hollowed-out floor. We stand on the rim of the sudden, sheer fall, staring at nothing, at the cloud's white core. This brings us to our discussion for today, and it grows straight out of that last image, the walker at the rim, staring into the cloud and out of the man in the peat beneath his feet. The question is this: what does it mean to write about a landscape, not as a visitor passing through, but as someone who intends to belong to it completely, even in the end to become it? Because most nature writing is written from the outside. The poet arrives, observes, admires, and leaves. The mountain is a subject held at arm's length, described. And there is nothing wrong with that. Much of the poetry I love is written exactly so. But there is another way of writing a place, and it's quite different, and Wainwright's story on Haystacks points straight at it. It's the writing of a place you have decided is yours, not that you own it, but that you belong to it, that you have given yourself to it, that you would want at the last to be scattered into it and become its grit and its water and its wind. That kind of writing has a different quality altogether. It is not observation. It is closer to love and closer to vow. I want to talk about what changes when you write a landscape that way, because I think it is one of the deepest things a poet who is also a walker can learn. The first thing that changes is the humility. When you write about a place you merely visit, you are the important one. You are the consciousness, the eye, the maker of meaning, and the landscape is your material. But when you write a place you intend to become part of, the proportions reverse. The mountain was here 500 million years before you, and it will be here long after the last atom of you has been absorbed into it. You are the temporary one. The fell is the permanent one, or as permanent as anything gets. Writing from inside that knowledge strips away a great deal of ego. You stop trying to master the landscape in language and start trying, instead, to be worthy of it, to see it clearly enough and to love it truly enough that your becoming part of it would not be an insult to it. That is a very different posture, and you can hear it, I think, in the best of the poetry of place. It does not stand over the land. It kneels in it. The second thing that changes is your relationship with your own mortality. And this is where our theme returns, and where I want to tread gently, because it touches all of us. To choose a landscape to become part of is to make peace, in a quiet and particular way, with the fact that you will end. But notice what kind of peace it is. Wainwright did not look at Haystacks and see an ending. He looked at it and saw a destination, a place to change into. He did not want to disappear. He wanted to become grit in a walker's boot, water in the tarn, part of the view he had spent his life teaching others to love. That's Shelley's cloud exactly. I change, but I cannot die. The man didn't believe he would be erased. He believed he would be transformed, dispersed into a landscape that would carry him in an altered form for as long as the mountain stood. And whatever you believe about what does or doesn't survive us, there is something in that vision that is true at the plainest physical level. The matter that is us is not destroyed when we end. It is released and taken up again, and it goes on, changing state, part of the world's long unbroken cycle of becoming. And this, I think, is the gift that writing such a landscape can give, not only to the poet, but to the reader. Last week we stood in Moor, and I spoke about a town waiting for the turf to close over it, and there was no comfort in it, and I did not offer any, because there was none honestly to give. The turf closing over Moor was an ending that nobody chose. But the turf on Haystacks, the peat that holds Wainwright's ashes, is an ending that somebody chose, gladly, as an act of love. Same soil, same closing over, utterly different meaning. And the difference is the choosing and the loving. To write a landscape you want to become part of is to practice in language that second kind of ending, the kind that is not defeat but belonging. Not disappearance, but a change of state. So how do you actually do it as a writer? You do it by going back to the same place, again and again, in every season and every weather, until you know it not as a view, but as a companion. You do it by learning its real names, the tarn called Innominate, the specific rock, the particular tree, because you can't give yourself to a generality, you can only give yourself to something known in detail. You do it by writing it without flattery, as I tried to write Haystacks, the fractured stone, the ghost quarry, the cold astringent peat, because true love doesn't need its object to be perfect, and a place you would die into deserves to be seen whole, hard edges and all. And you do it, finally, by letting the place be larger than you in the poem, by not making yourself the hero of it, but making yourself, instead, a small and grateful part of something that will outlast you. And so we return to where we began. Nothing here is lost, it is only changing state. The mountain is coming apart, and that isn't loss, it is the slow, patient work of time, turning rock into scree, into soil, into the roots of the next living thing. The cloud disappears, and that isn't death, it's only vapour waiting to build itself again. And the man in the peat of Haystacks didn't vanish when he was scattered there. He changed his state from a walker who loved a mountain into the mountain itself, grit in a boot, treated gently by strangers who read his books. That's what it can mean to write a landscape you want to become part of. Not to conquer it, not even in the end to describe it, but to love it so truly and to see it so clearly that becoming part of it feels not like an ending at all, but rather like coming home. And so we come to the end of another walk together. We have stood with Percy Bysshe Shelley and heard the cloud declare, against all the evidence of its own vanishing, I change, but I cannot die. And we have climbed Haystacks, the fractured, secretive, beloved fell where the rock comes slowly apart. The old quarry has gone to ghost, and a great walker chose to lay himself down and become the mountain he loved. 2 poems about dissolution, one spoken by the vapour that cannot be destroyed, the other standing at the edge, staring into its white core, and the quiet truth that runs between them, that nothing here is lost, it is only changing state. Before I go, one small thing, and I promise it will stay small, because this is not that kind of show. If these walks are becoming part of your week, the surest way not to lose them is to follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you happen to be listening now. It's free, it's quiet, and it means the next episode finds its own way to you every Wednesday morning without your having to remember. If the show has given you something, following it is the simplest way to make sure it keeps doing so, and it helps other quiet souls out there searching for exactly this to find their way here too. And now to our competition. If there is a poem you would like featured in a future episode, a classic, something modern, or a personal favourite you have carried with you for years, please email me at aldencarrow78@gmail.com. That's aldencarrow78@gmail.com. Every suggestion is entered into the draw for a signed copy of Cumbria in Verse Lakes to Fells in Poetry, which I will send to you by hand. The book is also available to buy at Amazon. The next guest poem will come from one of you, and that is precisely how I want this podcast to work. Not as a broadcast sent out into the silence, but as something shared, passed hand to hand between people who still care to listen. So thank you for listening, for slowing down with me, and for being willing to stand at the edge of a high place and see, in something coming apart, not an ending, but a change of state. Until next time, may you find poetry waiting for you in the everyday, and I shall speak to you again on Wednesday.